Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Tonight marks the third session of our TrEd Career Chat series, the 10th initiative of our Transformative Education TrEd program at the American University of Beirut, AUB. For first-time joiners, know that you are stepping into a space where curiosity fuels discovery, where young minds meet pioneers ready to inspire the next generation of leaders. Unlike our mentoring talk series, where Nobel laureates and global figures share powerful stories of resilience and discovery, career chats zoom in on a different angle. What happens after AUB? They highlight the bold steps taken by AUB chemistry alumni and professionals who transformed their academic foundations into impactful careers, reminding us that success is not only about where you begin, but also about how you carry your vision forward. Today, we invite you to explore the journey of a career shaped by dedication, vision, and a foundation built here at AUB, an institution renowned for excellence and impact. From these very halls of our chemistry department to his distinguished role as professor of surgery at Harvard Medical School, Dr. Haytham Kaafarani stands as a living example of how AUB's values transcend borders and echo globally. This career chat is centered around an often overlooked theme in common stories of success, that is failure. Most people would define failure as ending, a reason to quit. However, defeats teach resilience and nurture purpose, creating leaders who don't stop at obstacles, but rather strive because of them. Tonight's guest truly exemplifies this. As a benchmark-setting trauma and emergency surgeon, the Director of Patient Safety and Quality, Trauma and Emergency Surgery, and a professor of surgery at Harvard Medical School, Dr. Haytham has openly expressed the setbacks that molded him into the leader he is today. His journey is a powerful reminder that failure isn't a flaw in our career path, rather the foundation. Starting from his early AUB days, Dr. Haytham defined his pursuit of knowledge by curiosity and people. Torn between his love for mathematics and his vocation to help people, he didn't commit to medicine until his last undergraduate year. Here at AUB, he recognized how science and benevolence combine strength to make a physician, a principle that has guided him ever since. Through a rocky path, young Dr. Haytham arrived in the United States, experiencing the heavy pressures of intense surgical training with 100-hour weeks far from family and uncertainty of carving out his spot in a competitive system with scarce opportunities. It was sure to not be easy. However, it was the failures, the people, and especially the AUB alumni community that surrounded him that became a source of support in his new environment. All these factors pushed him through, guiding him both professionally and personally. His authentic, candid experiences with rejection, doubt, and endurance are what ultimately powered him forward. Despite all his accomplishments, Dr. Haytham stands grounded in his lessons of failure, thinking beyond, diligently working, remaining humble and grateful, and surrounding oneself with love. Quote, Beirut, Bangui, Boston, the raw stories of failure that build one up, end of quote. These words capture not only the title of Dr. Haytham's journey, but also the spirit of resilience and growth that defines true leadership. From Beirut to Bangui to Boston, his path reminds us that failure is not an end point, but a stepping stone, and that dedication, vision, and integrity can carry patient care from its most humble beginnings to the highest level of surgical leadership at Harvard, Mass General Brigham, Massachusetts General Hospital, and the Joint Commission. I am joined on this panel by Christelle Zaidan, the president of the TrEd Student Club, and Farah Al-Awar, the president of the ACS Student Chapter at AUB. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming someone who reminds us that medicine is not just about prescribing medications, but more importantly, medicine aims always for patient safety. Welcome home, cousin. The floor is yours.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be with all of you today. Bilal, I am grateful for the invite to be among you. This is very special for me. I know it seems like I'm lecturing, but it's the other way around. I do consider it a chat, and I only have a few slides, so we can chat in the end, and I can get all your questions. I mean, this series that you're doing, along with the mentorship talk, are really changing lives, Bilal, and you should be really proud of what you're doing. And I hope today I can be just part of this mosaic that you're building and transforming lives at AUB. Let me see if I can share my slides. I'm also thankful for Farah and Christelle for sharing this with me. And let me see if I can share my screen, and if somebody can tell me if you can see my slides, I'll be grateful. Can somebody confirm?
Yes, verbally? Yes, everything is fine.
Perfect. So I thought a lot about what to talk to you today, and I have so much that we can share that is science and data, but I decided that we don't talk enough. A lot of times we look at people who are successful and we see only their successes, we see only their Twitter announcements of the good stuff, their announcement on LinkedIn of the good stuff, but beyond that tip of the iceberg, there's usually a lot of failures for that tip of iceberg of success that people see. So I thought today I'm gonna focus on this. I'm gonna show you what failures are, how failures can actually be blessings in disguise if you want, and how you can build on them. You should embrace them. That's the only message of my talk. So I have no disclosures to you today. I do have some grant fundings and I get some money related to UpToDate, but I have to say I am not speaking today on behalf of the Joint Commission, which is a role I played in my prior life. It's kind of like similar to being in a Ministry of Health, if you want, in charge of the credentialing of hospitals across the United States. So I'm required to say I'm not speaking on their behalf so I don't get in trouble. So what do I have to share with you? I really have a very small journey to share with you. I'm going to share with you some pictures, and hopefully some of you would identify and share a common background and history with me. And have 3 stories out of thousands that I could share, but I chose 3 stories to share with you today with a specific message for each one of them. But before I do, I have a surprise quiz for you. And I can't see you because of the presentation mode. So I'm gonna need you or Bilal or Christelle or somebody to shout to me to answer. Does anybody know what is this in reference to? And Bilal, you're not allowed to answer this one if you know it. I have the whole all the time. I'm gonna wait. Give it a shot. And no Googling and no ChatGPT.
Okay, you wanna give it you wanna try to answer Farah or Christelle? What do you think is this?
Is it like a reply back from a journal about the rejection of a publication that you attempted to submit?
Well, it's not mine. I'm not that old, Christelle.
No,
1983, I was 5 years old.
not yours, but a prominent doctor.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you a hint. This is in reference to that microorganisms that in the picture is now. I know you guys are not in medicine, but let me tell you what this is. And there's a reason I'm putting this one in specific. This picture is for the H. pylori, the Helicobacter. It's the spiral bacteria that causes gastric and duodenal ulcers. بالعربي القرحة. And that was discovered by Dr. Barry Marshall. Dr. Barry Marshall won the Nobel Prize in 2005 for the discovery of H. pylori as the bacteria that causes duodenal and gastric ulcers, one of the most common diseases in the 20th century in the Western world. And I put this because I just want you to see that when he submitted his findings to a scientific society, they rejected only 11 out of 67 abstracts. And his discovery of H. pylori was rejected as only one of the 11 that were rejected to that. That work eventually won the Nobel Prize. So just take a moment, think about it, and know that a lot of times those failures can sometimes be the fuel that we need to continue the good work that we're doing. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about the journey, and then we'll go into my own stories. Oh, one more quiz for you before we go into the journey. Anybody knows what that? Maybe that's a bonus quiz. Anybody knows what's that I'm pointing at in the background? I don't know if you can see it in my picture. So it's a rainy day in Boston today, very rainy. But right there is the Ether Dome. Anybody knows what the Ether Dome is in history? No? The Ether Dome, and you should look it up, is the Ether Dome is where the first surgery under anesthesia was ever performed in the world in 1846. This is Mass General Hospital. It used to be only that building, and now it's like a city with 26,000 employees. But that right there under that dome was the first surgery ever performed under anesthesia in the world. So going back to my journey, I was born in Lebanon. I lived in Lebanon until 2003. Regular family. You can see me in this picture. This is my dad was an officer in the Lebanese army. My mom was a school teacher. This is my grandmother who passed away many years ago. And my dad is from a town in the Bekaa Valley called Shmastar, which you can see in the first picture up there, which is the same town from which Bilal is. But I actually grew up, I didn't grow up in the Bekaa Valley. I grew up in Saida and Sur. And you can see, I spend a lot of my times on the beach. So when you see the snow, I'm more of a beach guy because I grew up really on the beach in Saida and in Sur. And I have a lot of good memories and still a lot of friends from these specific areas. I hope some of you have gone to this school and recognize this picture. I did go to Rafiq Hariri High School in middle school and high school there. And I have also some of my best friends still in touch today from those days. And I actually did not have, my parents were not well off to make it to AUB. And I was lucky enough to get a scholarship after in Matelem. I was in Matelem. I ended up in medicine, but I was in Matelem, which is the mathematics section. And I ranked #1 on the country, which gave me a scholarship, which then made me able to go to AUB. So I'm very thankful for that scholarship that I received. I'm also thankful for AUB, who gave me financial aid to supplement that scholarship. I was able then to go to AUB. And just like many of you today, I was a chemistry major. I spent many days on those stairs at the chemistry department and the green oval. And then I actually had my doubts at some point, like Bilal said. I had my doubts that I'm going to go into medicine. I had my acceptance, but I fell in love with quantum mechanics when I was a chemistry major. And I went and I revealed my thoughts to Dr. Mazen Al-Ghul at that point in time, who was teaching me the quantum mechanics course. Said, I think I'm in love with quantum mechanics. I want to become a quantum mechanics engineer instead of medicine. And he's like, nope, that's not a good career enough. You're being an idiot. Go to medical school. And obviously, I mean, he was joking back then. He was in love as well with quantum mechanics. But I did love chemistry, and I really enjoyed my days in chemistry at AUB. I still remember them with a lot of fondness. But after that, I did go to AUB, and I spent 4 years at both the medical school, the Saab Medical Library there, as well as the AUB Medical Center. And from AUB, actually, I was not planning to go to the United States. But what happens, it's life really works in weird ways, because when I was a 4th year student at AUB, I already had acceptance as an internship to stay at AUB and do at least some of my education there. But as an elective, you have 2 months of elective in medical school. And I had my second elective was at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. So I was there in the intensive care unit of Baylor, and I was keeping a low profile because they were hands off. I was able to do a lot of procedures as a medical student. And then one day I received a text on the pager that we used to carry from the head of the trauma center there. His name is Ken Maddox. He's a giant in the world of trauma surgery. And the message said, please report to Dr. Maddox's office. And as a medical student, you really want to lay low. You do not want to, be discovered if you want. So I thought I'm in trouble. I thought somebody told Dr. Maddox that there's a student from overseas who's wandering the hallways of the ICU at Bentop Hospital of Baylor and placing lines and doing procedures. So I thought I'm in trouble, but to his credit, he came, he said he's got some feedback from the residents about the student and he wanted to chat with me. And his chat changed my life because at the end he asked me, what are you doing next year? I said, well, I have an internship at AUB and that's what I'm planning to do. He said, that's not good enough, son. And then he made a phone call actually to another surgeon named Kamal Haythani. Kamal Haythani was a graduate of AUB as well. He's an amazing and also a giant in the world of surgery who was back then at Baylor College of Medicine. And he told him, Kamal, I got a guy from your alma mater here who we have a lot of good feedback on him. I heard you got a new grant. Do you need somebody to work with you next year? Literally, he drew the map of how to get to Kamal's office on a napkin, gave it to me, and I went to Kamal. Actually, we got along very well, and Kamal was my mentor. I worked with him the year after in Houston. So I spent a year of research in Houston, and after that, I applied to the match in surgery. And matching and surgery in the United States is very difficult. So we'll go into a little bit of details in one of the stories. But the bottom line, I did my internship at the Brigham and Women's Hospital, one of the Harvard teaching hospitals. I did some of my residency at Tampa General Hospital, University of South Florida, and then finished my residency at Tufts Medical Center. That was general surgery. Did my fellowship at the Massachusetts General Hospital, which is one of the main teaching hospitals of Harvard Medical School. And in the meanwhile, I did get a master's of public health at Harvard University as well. And after that, I took my first job, which was at Mass General Hospital. It's a very old hospital. It's 1,300 beds. If you want to know how big this is, compare AUB is about 300 beds. So this is 1,300 beds, has 116 operating rooms. For example, AUB has 10 operating rooms. Just gives you an idea of the scale of the place. It's really big. And you can see the Ether Dome, the one I'm pointing out right there is the one in this picture. But and I've been there. It's been the only place I've been at since I've been an attending. I do quite a few trips with Doctors Without Borders or Médecins Sans Frontières, and I've been to multiple missions, mostly in Central Africa. And I have also a story. One of the stories comes from those places, and that experience with Médecins Sans Frontières has really shaped me in how I think and how I think about serving humans in general. And I cherish it. And I haven't been on a mission for a few years now for personal reasons, but that also has enriched me as a human being a lot. In 2022 and in 2023, I got tapped on the shoulder and I was asked to serve as the Chief Patient Safety Officer of the Joint Commission in the United States of America. And that role was an interesting role. It was not what I had in mind. It was a temporary role. The Joint Commission is I know AUB itself is Joint Commission International accredited, but it pretty much is the accrediting body of the entire United States, which means every hospital has to go through a certain quality and safety standards and criteria, or else they will not be paid by the government for the services that they receive. So it's a big organization, it's a big ordeal. There's no Ministry of Health per se in the United States, but this is, as you know, kind of like one of the functions of the Ministry of Health in Lebanon is served by the Joint Commission there. And I also have, I'm big fond of the experience. It opened my eyes quite a bit when I was there, but it also took me away from patients, which I didn't enjoy as much because I am a surgeon at heart. So after serving there for a while, I declined for renewal and I came back to Mass General as the head of safety and quality in MGH. So those are kind of in a nutshell my journey, but I'm most proud of my kids. I have 3 kids. This picture is a little bit old, but my oldest, Yara, is now 16 years old. She just got her driving license, because in the US you get your driving license at 16, which is scaring the hell out of me. I got Ziad, who's 13 now, and Ziad is named, yes, he is named after the late Ziad al-Rahbani, and Layla, who's 9 years old. But I'm also proud of my other kids, with it, which is the research teams I've built over the years. And you can see this is one of the years that our research team, I'm very proud of everything they've achieved. And it's a very, very international team. In this picture alone, you have at least 5, 6 nationalities. And I can point to you out, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but that's Majid al-Hashi from AUB. That's Muhammad al-Muhib from AUB. And you got a couple of people from Greece, you got a couple of people from Holland, from Denmark, from the US, but also I have Usaid al-Sir, who's now, they're all surgeons now, by the way, or on their way to become surgeons. And Usaid al-Sir is from Gaza. Now, this is a nutshell, and hopefully in the end, some of you will tell me if you share some of the background that I share. So this is all the good stuff. Let's talk about some of the bad stuff, some of the failures. So why do I want to talk about failure? I'm a data person, very much a data person, very much a scientist. Why am I talking to you with stories today, and why stories of failure in specific? Because I do think stories are powerful. Data is very powerful, but data with some stories take it to another level. Because I do believe that out of suffering emerge the strongest souls, and that the most massive characters that you will meet are really seared with scars. Because I do believe that every failure in specific is in disguise a blessing, an opportunity for your growth. You might not know it at that moment in time, but it is really a door that is being opened to you, and you only need to see it. Let's start with those stories. Story number 1. You got this kid from Beirut who's now in Houston applying to the match in surgery. Very proud, coming with a lot of pride of AUB. I consider AUB one of the best in the Middle East, if not the best in the Middle East. And I applied. And there's a lot of bias against international medical graduates in general when you apply to the match in the US. But in surgery in specific, it's a very competitive field. So a lot of institutions screen out international medical graduates up front. The story goes as follows. I had worn my best suit that day. I was interviewing on one of the academic places in the United States. And I had rehashed in my head a lot of the questions that are typically asked, and I'm ready for that interview. It was one of my first few interviews that I received that year. So I arrive to my next interviewer, and I knock on the door. And there's a surgeon, and she was sitting at her desk, and she had clearly my file in her hand. And she was flipping through my file, just reading some excerpts here and there, just flipping through the file. And I waited. And I waited. 1 minute passed. I knocked on the door again. Still, she's not looking at me. She's looking at my file. I say hello. Still no answer. 5 long minutes go by, and I'm still standing at the door. I haven't been even let into the room. And after 5 minutes, that surgeon looks up and goes, I do not understand. You are an international medical graduate. You are already at the bottom of my list. And she said bottom 4 times. You are at the bottom of my list. Why are you wasting my time? I don't even need to tell you how that interview went. That was the start of the interview. I was not comfortable. I was very much pushed against the wall. I did not perform to my best. I felt I needed to somehow justify my existence, justify my worthiness of being in that place to interview. And eventually I did not match at that place. I matched somewhere else. And this came around because that place was actually not the best place I interviewed at, and was not a place I would want to have matched at. But just tells you the kind of barriers that you face along the way. And you got to remember that nothing will make you more determined in life than someone not doubting your achievements, but doubting your existence or your worthiness. And I have another picture there. I give you a story here of the stuff that you have to go through to be where you need to be. There's a picture there that you can see at the bottom of pagers. I mean, even when I matched, there was stories of discrimination and bias that a lot of us carry along and we'll never forget. So why do I have a picture of pagers there, for example? I'll give you another story that was in the middle of my residency. And that was, specifically in 2006, when Lebanon was going through the war of 2006, and it was all over the news in the United States. And there was a function, there was a social function. And I decided that I'm going to stay behind and take care of my patients, but I wanted to be nice to all my co-residents who are trainees in surgery. And I offered, I said, why don't you all give me your pagers for all the respective services you're covering? I'll cover for the next 2-3 hours so you guys can go to the social function. I need to stay behind anyway. So I was being a good team player. I took all the pagers of all my residents and put them on my waist just like that. And I was just turning down fires for the next 2-3 hours until they finished the dinner, the social function that was made for residents. And of course, one of the surgeons there sees me. And instead of saying, thanks for being a good soul for covering for your colleagues, he goes, knowing very well where I come from. And that surgeon goes, you're not going to try to blow yourself up in us, are you? And of course, when somebody doubts your heritage, doubts who you are, doubts your entire existence, it was a painful moment for me. But you carry some of these scars. The question is, do not let them define you. Just take them, fly away with them, and shatter the ceiling. Because that ceiling that people try to build for you, it's really made of glass. It's only a ceiling they created in their own lives, in their own heads. So shatter that ceiling. It's really made of glass. You can always go further. And I put this picture to tell you, like with my role with the Joint Commission, if you think politics of Lebanon are complicated, this is the healthcare only in the United States and how complicated it is. So you see the Secretary of Health and Human Services, you see CMS, PCORI, you see Medicare, Medicaid, you see the Joint Commission. So I was a small dot in this big, complicated healthcare system, but I was in charge of it at the national level. For me, going back to the moment where somebody was doubting even my ability to be in the healthcare system in the US, to really reach a level where I am in charge of quality and safety at a national level, it just reminded me of my mindset back then. How I felt that maybe I don't deserve to be there. I doubted myself and I shouldn't have. So my message to you, do not let others define who you are and what you can achieve. Those ceilings are made of glass. Story number 2. I'm in Boston now. I finished my training. It's my first few months as a trauma surgeon. I trained all my life to deal with trauma. 7 years of training, not counting medical school, to be where I was. Mass General Hospital, one of the best hospitals in the world. And I'm ready to prove myself. And it was around in December, it was around Christmas time. And when I'm there, I receive a 48-year-old man who was involved in a forklift incident, in a factory incident. Basically, he was pinned against the wall with a forklift, and then he fell on it. So he actually had what we call a blunt and a penetrating injury at the same time. So he arrived to me really in distress, in what we call hemorrhagic shock, bleeding to death. And that was the calling of a trauma surgeon. And I took him to the operating room, and we did major surgery on him. I kept operating on him. I did 6 surgeries on him in the first 2 to 3 days. We call, without going too medical on you, but we packed the pelvis. We embolized both internal iliacs. We created a conduit to restore the circulation into his right extremity. I diverted his stool into an ostomy because his rectum was injured. I diverted his urine because his bladder was injured. And then every day I would meet with his family, which was his mother and his 14 and 16-year-old kids. And I would tell them the same thing we tell all the critically ill patients is, he's very critical. I'm not sure he's going to make it. He's battling for his life. We're trying our best. But on December 24th of that day, again, first few months for me as an attending, he actually turned the corner. He looked better. So we decreased the sedation. He woke up with a breathing tube. He gave us a thumbs up. He said, you know, he looked like he's neurologically intact. His brain did not suffer despite all the illness. So I went back to his mother and his 14 and 16-year-old kid. I said, I think we made it. We saved this guy's life. And his mother was so happy. She waited and made all these Christmas cookies for me and gave them in this very nicely decorated box that you can see down there. And my daughter, who was very young at that point in time, loved that box and kept it for years in her room, reminding me of the story, where she puts her bracelets, her necklaces, her little letters with her friends. She kept all of this in this box. But then that same night, I received a phone call from my partner who was in the hospital, my colleague, who said, dude, your guy is going down the tubes. My patient was not doing very well. I rushed back to the hospital on December 25th, Christmas Day. And what I found is that guy has developed what we call a necrotizing soft tissue infection, a very bad infection in his pelvis. And it was not surprising because we did a lot of surgery in his pelvis. A lot of bacteria was spilled from his colon and rectal injury in the area. And then he was so sick from that infection that that morning he died. And I had to sit with his 14 and 16-year-old kids and his mother and tell them that I gave them false hopes. And he died on Christmas morning. Now, the reason I tell the story is not only because I lost a patient. Trust me, in the field that I do, we lose a lot of patients, unfortunately. That's just the nature of my field. But the reason I tell because I felt horrible. And I felt horrible because I realized something the minute I knew he had the infection. I remembered that on the last surgery I did, the fat in that area did not look very healthy. It did not look shiny. Like healthy fat has a shiny feel, almost like a sparkle to it. And it did not look this way. It looked dull. It looked like it's on its way to be what we call a necrotizing infection. And I felt guilty. I felt I betrayed that patient. I missed it. I don't know why I missed it. And I had doubts. Perhaps I was not as good a surgeon as I thought I am. Perhaps I am not experienced enough, and was another surgeon who was more experienced, they would not have missed that infection. They would have cleaned it, and that 48-year-old man would be still alive for his 14 and 16-year-old kids. I felt maybe I was just lazy. Maybe after 3 days of operating, I just had wishful thinking because I was too tired, and I'm not a good ethical person for not doing the right thing at that point in time. It was a moment of failure for me, and it was one of very big setback for me in the beginning of my career as a young, hopeful trauma surgeon. But that actually later on, it led me to a study. And that study called the BISA study that gained a lot of attention in the United States, where we did a survey to all the Harvard teaching hospitals here looking at multiple aspects of what an intraoperative adverse event or intraoperative complication, how, the attitude of surgeons towards it. But then when we asked the questions about the emotional response of intraoperative adverse events, we had very surprising results. What we found is the emotional toll of complications, especially during surgery, is very significant on surgeons. 84% responded. This is all Harvard teaching hospitals, reported a combination of severe anxiety, severe guilt, severe sadness, shame, and embarrassment and anger when something does not go well during surgery. And actually, quite a few surgeons anonymously reported they needed professional long-term psychological help for years to come. They all contributed these sentences. We opened a Pandora's box with that study. This is some of the sentences for some of the, if you want, the most classical traditional surgeons in the entire world. We all hide our grief. We suffer in silence. The pain can be close to debilitating. Everyone knows about an intraoperative adverse event within moments. There's no such thing as a support system, only criticism. The competitive culture of surgery at one of those 4 institutions makes it difficult to seek out support openly. The responses at mortality and morbidity is personally critical rather than constructive, even though everyone encounters such events. The system is focused on blaming surgeons rather than solving safety issues, makes a difficult emotional time even worse. That work led to the discussion of talking about the second victim in surgery. Virtually every surgeon knows the sickening realization of making a bad mistake. You feel singled out, exposed. You agonize about what to do. Later, the event replays itself in your mind. You question your competence. You know you should confess, but dread the prospect of potential punishment and the patient's anger. If you haven't told them, you wonder if they know. And it led to all these discussions. It's a change of culture in the United States. This was 2017. But then we discovered that all our guiding ideals for years, a culture we built for years based on selflessness, makes us place the welfare of others above our own, but also makes us vulnerable, not seeking help for health problems, because personal health is never a priority for a surgeon. We're stoic, we're tough. Surgeons are tough. They endure hardship without complaint. We have these stories about walking and rounding on our patients with the IV bag in our hand, but that makes surgeons not aware, acknowledging significant symptoms and suffering. Surgeons seek excellence. They want to become the best and most effective professionals available, but that makes them feel ashamed, deny or minimize imperfections when they occur. And the only surgeon without a complication is the one that is not operating. But again, that led not only to a change of culture, it was a momentum that started where we started a surgery-specific second victim peer support program at Mass General at Harvard. And from there, it just caught like wildfire in the entire country. And almost every hospital now has a peer support second victim program, which we're not going to go into details now. But now even other countries are following it. I was just in Scotland last week. And in Scotland, they're rolling, not Scotland, the entire UK, they're rolling a peer support program for the entire nation. Every hospital is now required by the NHS to have a peer support program to deal with these issues. The reason I told that story is because in vulnerability, sometimes there's a door and there's an opportunity. And you need to catch it, you need to see it, you need to get beyond your emotions and understand what the world might be presenting you with. Again, a blessing or an opportunity to make a difference in the world. Story number 3, last story before we go into our chat. And this one happened in Central Africa. Bangui is the capital of Central African Republic, but actually this story happened in the Congo, when I was in the Congo. And that is a very special story with me that I'm going to share with you today. So this was a very busy mission for me with Médecins Sans Frontières. And it was an area of conflict. It's the eastern border of the Congo, an area where there was the genocide. If you remember with Rwanda, a lot of refugees. It's an area with constant conflict. If you think Lebanon has conflicts, we pale in front of the eastern border of the Congo, how much conflict they have. So I was a very busy surgeon. I was doing a lot of operations. And I was finishing up a surgery, and the emergency room physician came to me and say, "You need to come with me. I have a patient you need to see now in the emergency room." And I finished up the surgery. I went to see that patient, and it was an 8-year-old patient. An 8-year-old patient who was horsing around with his brother, and they were playing swords, if you want, with logs of wood, and his brother accidentally hit him with the log of wood on his head. And then a couple hours later, he became unconscious, and his mother brought him to the hospital. And I looked at the 8-year-old kid, and I recognized immediately that he has a major bleeding in his head, and the pressure in his head is so high that he needed immediate decompression of the bleeding in his head, what we call a craniotomy. And that was immediately what I wanted to do. I wanted to take this 8-year-old and immediately decompress their skull. But then I realized something. I realized that I am in the middle of nowhere. And I have only one ventilator, which is the breathing machine that I'm using on the patients in the operating room. And somebody who needs a craniotomy is somebody who's going to need a breathing tube, is going to need an intensive care unit for weeks before they can recover. And I could not give the one ventilator we have to one patient, which will deprive literally tens, if not hundreds of patients of the ventilator use. So I walked back and I sat with his mother. And his mother did not speak English or French. She spoke Sango, which is the language they speak there, but there was a nurse translating for me. And I tried to explain to the mother that her son is going to die. And at some point, I was getting, I would say, just a little bit emotional, saying, "I'm sorry, I can't do anything for your son. He's going to die in the next hour or two. And in the resources that I have, I cannot do something at all." And through the interpreter, the mother starts crying. And in the middle of her crying, she puts her hand on my head, and she started consoling me as well, saying, "I understand. I can see you're a good person. You're trying your best here. And I know you're limited." And we started having this conversation through the interpreter. And it was a moment that is surreal for me. It was a moment where I see the mother of a kid that's dying trying to console the surgeon who's supposed to save her son, but could not. It was a moment of connectedness. Sorry, this is my trauma pager, but somebody else is covering for me. But the bottom line, it was a moment of connectedness of two human beings in the middle of nowhere that are just connected at a very deep level. I felt her pain very much so of losing her own son. She felt my pain as a surgeon who knows how to save her son, but is not able to save her son. But it reminded me of why I went to medicine in the first place and why I became a surgeon in the first place. Because in my mind, there's no other field of work, even with that failure in that moment, within and outside medicine, that allows that deep of a human connection like surgery. I hate the fact that we stereotype surgery as a very mechanical field or a very dry field. I hate that we stereotype surgeons as people who do not feel the humanity of others, who are arrogant, who are unable to feel with other human beings. That is a stereotype, and that's what it is. Because there's no other field in my mind where a fellow human can look you in the eye, can listen to you, can surrender to you, and trust that you will take them literally to the edge of life and then back. And that actually led to work that we're starting to talk about. The Institute of Medicine in the United States talks about the 6 dimensions of quality. What is the quality of care? And we now open at least the discussions to talk about a 7th domain of quality, which is patient connectedness. Hippocrates recommended centuries ago, cure sometimes, treat often, but comfort always. Hippocrates' words are as relevant today as they were then. And I believe it is time we bring back safety and quality where it belongs, to the patient's bedside, and create systems of care delivery that promote this 7th dimension of quality, meaningfully connecting with and comforting patients, especially when sometimes that is all we can offer them. So these are the stories and the three messages that I have for you for these failure stories, for me, among many, believe me. Number one, do not let anyone define your sky. You and only you can define your sky and what the limit is. Number two, be vulnerable. Sometimes, not all the time, but occasionally, it's okay to be vulnerable, because in vulnerability, you will find your strength and calling. Sometimes safety is best sought in the eye of the storm. Number three, seek depth in your relationships, whether they're personal or professional relationships, because when the noise settles down, these relationships are all that really matters. So embrace your failures, use them as fuel, do not let them define you. Again, I'm so excited to be with you today. I'm very thankful to you, Bilal, for the invitation to be with you today. So I hope I can hear some of your stories and let's chat a little bit.
Thank you so much, Haytham, for this beautiful, inspiring, too many stories, too many good stories, too many inspiring stories, and I'm sure you touched on so many thoughts that the attendees are wondering about. And to the attendees, please type your questions in the Q&A box. I'll be reading the questions and Dr. Haytham will answer these questions. But before, I'll give the floor to Crystal to ask a question. Go ahead, Crystal.
Thank you very much for the very beautiful presentation. Honestly, I had a different question planned, but according to your presentation, I wanted to kind of differentiate a bit. Going back to the essentiality of AUB in shaping your career, I really wanted to ask and get your raw opinion on the importance of the activities and the character development that you had in AUB. And if so, did you take on any leadership positions or any specific clubs or societies, or even took part in a certain conference or activity that you felt really helped you and made you stand out even in Harvard and in the United States?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think to be honest with you, yes. I mean, I was very involved in all the extracurricular activities at AB. I told you I was with the chemistry organizing committee, and then with all the elections and everything at AB. So I was very active back then. And then medical school was the same as the class representative for a few years. But to be honest with you, when I look back, I think my third message to you is the most important. All of these help, but seek depth in your relationship. In the end, what you will find is the depth of relationship you develop with people, the networks that you do with other AUB, they will last with you forever. Seek the people who inspire you, your teachers who inspire you, those who open your eyes. But as importantly, even your colleagues, develop a depth of relationship. Get to know your colleagues in a deep way, so those relationships will serve. And AUB networking across the world is very strong and very alive. So, like I told you, the door in the United States was opened with Kamal Itani, an AUB graduate of 1985. And even till today, I mean, what he told me back then, he said, I'm opening the door for you. Make sure you keep that door open for the people coming after you. And I take his words, and Bilal knows, I take his words to heart, and I can't open every single door in the world, but every time I can, I will open it. And I have no shame in saying AUB takes preference, and you guys make it easy because you're all amazing, but by dul nawishna. So when we actually open the door for you, you keep it open.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Farah, your question?
Yes, hello again, Dr. Kaafarani. Thank you so much for this insightful presentation. I really enjoyed it. As a chemistry student as well, and as someone who also enjoys quantum chemistry because I really liked it so much, I wanted to ask you, how was the transition from chemistry to medicine, and what ultimately motivated you to choose medicine over pursuing quantum research?
Yeah, there is a transition for sure from being, especially if you're a very scientific person in mind in medical school. What made me ultimately decide on medical school, I had really, actually, I did take a few months to think with the acceptance of medical school, whether I really want to do it. I enjoy the human interaction. I enjoy people. And I do think medicine is one of the only fields in the world that allows you to use science, still be a data person, but at the same time, it's also very people engaging, and you're interacting with people literally on a daily basis, sometimes in their weakest moments. So I think that's what, for me, it was more meaningful to me to be in that area of study. Having said that, like I said, I have a lot of respect for chemistry in general and quantum mechanics in specific, which I think is an amazing field. And it's just, you know, the philosophy that it touches is just absolutely unbelievable. The transition itself, I have no advice except this one, that if don't go into medicine thinking medicine is an exact science. Medicine is there's a lot of pattern recognition that is rooted in science. And I do think maybe in 500 years, they will laugh at us for the stuff that is pattern recognition, because we will discover the comprehensive scientific theory that explains everything that happens. But right now, there's a lot of pattern recognition that's rooted in science, which means that's why you need so many years of doing it, and the experience matters. So if you go with the mentality that it's an exact science, you will struggle a little bit more until you accept its imperfection per se.
Thank you. This question is coming from Lin Al-Hushani Medical Lab student. What advice would you give to students who feel they don't yet have a clear plan, but still want to position themselves for big opportunities?
That's a good thing. You know, don't have too early of a plan. You know, keep your mind open. It's okay not to have a clear plan. I think that maybe just an openness to what the field will show you, and trust me, people. Well, I guess my advice to you is, people recognize that humans change their minds all the time. So don't feel like, I have a CV that half of it is showing I'm interested in this field, and now I've changed my mind, and people can look at my CV, they know what are they doing. That's not true. As somebody who reviews CVs every day for positions and people applying, I tell you, I actually look at it as a sign of strength, meaning people change their minds and take their time to discover where they want to be, and that's okay. So take your time, find your way, you will find it, and do something that makes you happy every day.
Thank you. This question is from Carol Caston, biology student. As someone who lived in Congo for 3 years, then Liberia for 4 years, the extremely dire conditions in such places have been a main motivator of mine to wanting to pursue this career path. As doctors swear to do no harm, could the lack of support for improved healthcare in such underdeveloped countries like Congo be seen as a passive form of harm?
Wow, that's a deep question. The answer is yes, I think so, actually. I think I do think inequality anywhere is in healthcare and in services should not be acceptable, and we should not be treated as normal. I think we all have a duty. I'm not the best in terms of, am I the one who is an advocate and can change this inequality of available resources to different parts of the world? I'm not, but there are people who are amazing and trying to do that job. And if that motivates you, you should find the people who can help you be on that path. I do think it's very hard to see that in the US, I am putting literally hundreds of thousands of dollars resources to save an 85-year-old who I know the best I could do is extend their life by 2 years, while in the eastern border of the Congo, I cannot. I don't have $150 worth of resources to save an 18-year-old or an 8-year-old for that matter. So I find it very hard, but there are people better than me trying to change this.
Thank you. This question is from Ronnie Diab. How did the pain and resilience of Lebanon shape the kind of surgeon and human you became?
Yeah. Yeah, no, nothing stops Lebanese people, nothing stops AUB people, and you'll be the same. We don't crack easy. We don't crack easy, and we don't take no for an answer. You know, somebody telling you no is just that. That means I need to find the other person who will say yes. So keep that in mind. So yes, AUB, it teaches you how to hustle, how to fight. Sometimes it could have unintended consequences. I've seen it in some people, for example, students that I had from research fellows from Palestine or Gaza in specific. They're such fighters that sometimes they need to calm down a little bit. Like you're in a safe place now. You don't need to be fighting as much. But in the essence, if you just keep it under control, like understand, read your room very well, you read your new environment, it can be really a driving force as long as you understand that you might be in a different environment. There are different ways of doing it. Good question.
Thank you. This question is from Lin Hashhadi. It is enthralling to know that you went to the same high school as I did. So to build on that, what are some lessons that you learned during that time that will shape your work ethics now? If you want to take credit.
What was the name? What was the name of the person asking the question?
Lin Hashhadi.
Okay.
What, you went with her father to the same school?
No. I just wanted to say, Lean, you're embarrassing me. No, you're making me go back in my memory. I'm losing my memory faster than my hair. So, listen, when I was in high school, you know, there are some things we used to complain about in high school that, you know, because we were students, we were high school students. Some things that we did not like and perhaps could have been better. But the truth is, a lot of the structures that were put in place back then just prepared us for the next stage in life, and the next stage prepared us to the third stage in life. So when I look back, I remember my high school with a lot of fondness. I remember them as supportive to them, and even when, you know, when we were doing things that were derailing us from where we need to be, they brought us back on track, and I owe them that, and many of us owe them that. And we've had some reunions, if you want, and we discussed how we were rebellious. You know, I was one of those who were a little rebellious in high school, but then we were wrong. They were right.
Thank you. This question is from Carl Sawaya, chemistry student. When you reflect on your career, do you see your legacy more in the operations you performed, the systems you changed, or the people you mentored along the way?
Excellent question. Wow. Impressive questions, really. The legacy is in all three. And you get different things from each three. When I did my work in 2022 and 23 with the Joint Commission, I scaled down my clinical. I was only taking one shift a month at the hospital and at Harvard because I didn't have the time. And it made me miss patients so much. I was this annoying surgeon who comes one shift a month. And when I see patients, I am like, I need their energy back. Like I miss their energy. So they give me something at a personal level that I appreciate now much more than I did before that job. So yes, it is a legacy, but I think every patient that I treated over the many, many years, they added something to me, and I do consider them a legacy. That's one. Two, the systems you change is, yes, you changed a few things over the years, and seeing them down the road where people are talking about it like it always existed forever, and you know you were sitting in that room and it was an idea you created back then, and now it's like everybody talks about it as if it existed since the Greek times. it's very enriching, and I think that is a legacy of how you change systems and for literally thousands of people after by changing a certain system. That's a legacy. But the third one I think is the most important, and it took me also a few years to realize is the most important thing is what Bilal is doing, which is really invest in people, because every person you invest in has a ripple effect. If you really invest in them enough and that you install the right mentality in them, how to help other people, invest in other people themselves, that's just a cascade of people helping people, helping people, helping people. And that really makes the biggest difference. So I think investing in people is the most important legacy among the three. قطعت الكهرباء.
Thank you. No, it's censor. I am not moving enough on my chair. This question is from Taleen Sariyuddin, a chemical engineering student. Between Beirut, Bangui, and Boston, where did you feel your passion was most fed? And are there any differences in medicine as a profession between different regions of the world?
The second question is easy to answer. Yes, there are differences in how we treat in all three places, and a lot of it has to do with the resources and has to do with the culture of the places. And yes, you need, while keeping a core principles how to treat patients, you need to adapt to different cultures and different resources to do the best that you can. Your first question is a difficult one, almost hits at what's the identity of one person. A good book is, I'm pretty sure you guys all, most of you maybe have read the book. It's called Les Identités Meurtrières, or In the Name of Identity by Amin Maalouf. It's a really good book, but it kind of gives the answer, a much better answer to your question, which is, I don't think it's a good idea to try to summarize your identity as one place out of many places you've been to, because we're all like the onion. We have different layers of identity in us, and what comes to the surface a lot of times is the mirror image of what's threatening you at a certain point. Let me give you an example. If somebody comes to me here at, like, in the next half an hour at Mass General and goes, the Middle East is just a messed up place, you'll find me to be a Middle Eastern par excellence. If somebody within the Middle East goes, Lebanon sucks, you'll find me to be a very Lebanese person. If somebody comes and says, you're going to find me become an AUB person. That's what comes to my identity. If somebody tries to attack, the identity in the you'll find that part of me comes up. Somebody attacks Lijnoub, you'll find that part. Beirut. So it doesn't matter. We're all a mix of these multi layers identity. So this is a long-winded answer to say, I am a big fan of the city I am in, Boston. It gave me a lot of what I am today. I'm a big fan of my trips with Doctors Without Borders because they really shaped how I think. And I will forever be an AUB person and a Lebanese person. That's a part of my identity I can't change. So in the end, you were all a mixture of everything we've experienced and lived. And I encourage people to live in multiple places. It really, really changes the way you see things. So in summary, my passion is in all three places is very similar, just a little bit different in texture.
Thank you. This question is from Jad Saaduddin. He's saying, I carry US citizenship, and as an AUB student interested in pursuing medicine in the States, from your experience, would it be better to apply directly to US medical schools or to complete medical school here and then apply for residency in the US? And how might my chances or opportunities differ between these two paths?
That's a tough question, a very common question. What was the name of the student? Sorry, Bilal.
Jad.
Jad
Saaduddin.
Yeah. Jad, whichever path you choose, I think you're going to be fine. That's my short answer. But if you can get into medical school directly from AUB undergrad, I think that make the later path easier. Having said that, it's not as easy to get into medical school directly from AUB. People have done it, even classmates of mine have done it. it will make the latter part easier, even if it's that school you end up as is not as good as AUB, to be honest. Having said that, I applying after medical school is a much clearer pathway. It's a little bit more difficult, but a much clearer pathway. And you having this U.S. citizenship does give you an advantage over people who need a visa, especially in the current environment. There's a lot of talk about visas and shortening J visas. So I would say try to get into medical school here, and if you don't and you have acceptance to AUB, you're going to be fine either way. It's just where do you want the difficulty to be, now or in 4 years?
Thank you. This question is from Muhammad Haidar, not the minister. He's a physics pre-med sophomore student at AUB. I love physics and I have a dream of becoming a surgeon. However, I'm finding it very hard to keep up with the workload, but my determination makes me refuse changing my major. Do you think it is better to stay as physics pre-med? And how are my chances of entering med school? And then he's thanking us for this session. Well, we had you remember Salam Sbaiti? He wanted to be well, he started physics and then he moved it to chemistry pre-med. But there are many students who are physics pre-med and they joined AUB and other medical schools.
Correct. To be honest, do whatever you like better in undergrad. And Bilal maybe can tell you at some point when you're advanced enough in physics and chemistry, it becomes one field to a certain extent. Like it's very hard to differentiate physics from chemistry because, especially when you get into quantum mechanics, it becomes almost the same courses. So I don't, if you really want to do medical school, then I think you can switch majors if you want, if you think it's easier for you. But again, a lot of the most amazing physicians I know and amazing doctors I know went through the physics track. And in the end, once you enter medical school, it's a tabula rasa. You all start from scratch. So it doesn't matter what field you were in.
As agreed, we will stay till 15 minutes past the hour. So we still have 8 minutes, if you don't mind. This question is from Lara Mirai, environmental health senior student. Much of your research focuses on surgical outcomes and patient safety. Not true. He has more than 500 papers, but we highlighted some of them. But her question going on, what was one of the biggest challenges you faced when trying to translate academic findings into everyday hospital practice?
Ooh, really good question. That's why AUB is the best, seriously. There's so much to unpack in this question. There's a whole field now that you can study called implementation science. And implementation science is a recognition in the last few years, maybe a couple of decades, that it is something to create new knowledge. It's something else to implement new knowledge. Let me do another quiz. I love quizzing. How long does it take on average for a scientific truth in medicine to become a standard of care applied and, pretty much everywhere? It's a number. I'm looking for a number. Somebody can guess that.
Okay. Guys, type in the QA box and then I will tell him what you are writing. 10. Jad Kanaan said 10.
10 what? Minutes?
لا, 10 years. He means 10 years.
Oh,
Right,
okay,
Jad?
10 years. Okay.
Ahmad Akhdar said 30 years. Ahmad Akhdar is Med 1 student at University of Balamand. And AUB lost him.
Yes. Well, let me answer. The answer is actually known. It's been studied. It takes 17 years. Okay. 17 years for a very well-established truth to become accepted in the medical world. So, yes, I mean, it's so much, it's thrilling to have new knowledge added. You do a study and you find an amazing finding and you feel like I'm just going to put it and publish it out there, and you wait and nothing happens. because it takes a long time for a truth to become widely accepted. I give you an example. You asked for a specific example. My first 5 years as a career as a surgeon scientist, my focus was on intraoperative adverse events and intraoperative safety of care. So basically, I was obsessed with when we actually do injuries during surgery, because there was this black box that nobody wants to talk about, and I thought I'm opening this black box. And I created a new classification of severity of injuries, and then studied how it affects outcomes, how it affects, what are the risk factors, how do we change it, how it affects money in the hospitals, everything you can imagine. And literally nobody noticed my work. You know, like it's like I publish, and it's like nobody cares. And then I moved, started doing, literally now is those papers are the most highly quoted. There are consortia being done where the papers are being quoted and it's like on the top of their guidelines and everything. It literally took 15 years for those papers to be done. I really gave up because like nobody cared, but I was wrong. I just didn't understand that it takes a long time. I do think that time does not have to be 17 years. I do think we need more people who are really rooted in implementation science, that take a new knowledge, a new scientific truth, and implement it within the practice of medicine, because that's 17 years of wasted lives per se.
Thank you. This question is from Jack Keshijian. How did you overcome the fear of asking questions when you believe your question is silly?
Jack, who told you I did? No. Listen, the one thing I say, especially as you progress in your career, train your mind to ask the question not because you care what people think of you when you ask a question, but you actually are literally, genuinely, scientifically curious, and you really are interested in the answer. If you put that compass in your head about when to ask a question, you should have no fear.
Thank you. This question is from Muhammad Shaitle, a chemistry student. From AUB to global leadership roles, what was the most determinative career decision that you made by chance at the time but turned out to be an important checkpoint in changing your path later on?
It's funny you ask this question. I think there's a lot more randomness in life. And one of the random things, so when I was a medical student, I actually wanted to be a neurologist initially. And when I was at AB, and my first elective in New York was at Columbia University, and it was in neurology. And my second elective was in Houston, as I said, was in the surgical intensive care unit. When I chose which electives I want to do, I chose the one in Houston because they told me they don't care, you get to do a lot of your hands, and that was appealing to me, but I still wanted to be neurology. I was not interested in surgery. It was a very random thought. It's like, بيخلوك تشتغل بإيديك هونيك. That was the random thought. And then I went to New York. I love New York City, but I hated neurology there because I'm like, I could not deal with the idea, like so much theories, but we actually cannot help patients as much. I needed to see that I can actually make a difference to patients. And I started doubting that I wanted to be a neurologist. And I went to Baylor and I fell in love with surgery, which some of it, maybe we didn't have good role models of surgery at AUB back then. Now there are amazing role models in surgery at AUB. Back then we didn't have good role models. And I realized I actually love surgery and there's a different way. You can be a surgeon scientist. But that was a very random decision to do the surgical ICU. And it changed my life completely from what I wanted to be to what I am today. Very random.
This question is from Gael Hankash. Gael has been live tweeting and posting on LinkedIn throughout this talk, and she has been tagging you. So once you are done, you are going to see a lot of notifications from Gael. Her question is, when failure strikes at every corner of who you are, your competence, your identity, your confidence, How do you rebuild the version of yourself that dares to try again?
It happens. I think it's you train your mindset to look at things differently. If you approach everything with a almost like a scientifically curious mind, you can look at every challenge that comes your way, no matter how difficult it seems, whether it's personal, whether it's career, as part of the experiment that's unfolding. And there are a lot for you to learn from it. To 5 years from it, you will look back at it and say, that actually taught me what I needed to know today, 5 years down the road, to deal with another situation and deal with it very well. So if you look at it as an experience you're building in life rather than a defining moment, so train your mindset to look at everything as an experience to learn from rather than a defining moment of who you are.
This is a last question. There are so many beautiful questions, but I know how busy you are and you need to go back to the operating room. So I'm sorry, I might not be able to say the name correctly. This name, the question is from Nigui Precious Tamasan. How do you discern? I don't know if he's joining from AUB or from outside. How do you discern whether a career path is meant for you, not one influenced by parents? If you don't find one early, when is it too late to change your career path?
I don't think it's ever too late. You can always reinvent yourself, and you can always reinvent yourself, whether you're pivoting a certain career or whether you're changing it completely. It's never too late. That's the short answer. When do you know a certain path is the right one for you? I think also people can like things they become good at. So don't be very. There's a certain career path, almost like, oh, there's somebody in the world that's the right tawam ruhi. That doesn't have to be like this. You can actually learn to enjoy whatever career you choose if you have the right mindset. But in the end, the compass should be, if you really love what you do, everything else becomes easy. Like if you're not enjoying the core of what that field is, then it might be time for you to change that career. You need to enjoy it. Everything else doesn't matter. You need to really enjoy what you do.
Well, this was so beautiful, so inspiring. I want to thank you, Dr. Haytham, for your time. I look forward to hosting you here in person in Lebanon next time you are traveling here. I want to thank all the attendees for staying that late and thank Cristal and Farah for being with us on the panel. Also, the IT person, our right hand, Hani, for always being with us on all of these events. Our next webinar is going to be by Chemistry Nobel laureate Martin Shelfie. And after him, there will be another Nobel laureate, Morten Meldal. So 2 Nobel laureates will be following you, Dr. Haytham, in our mentoring talk series. While the 4th career chat will be by Dr. Joe Al-Khouri from Yale University, another chemistry alumni. And I want to thank you again for your time. And thank you so much for sparing from your very busy schedule and leaving the operating room to be with us.
I'm grateful. I enjoyed this experience more than you think. And Bilal, thank you for the invite to be among you. And if any of you wants to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to try to answer and help or even just chat with you.
Thank you. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.